Not too many days ago, Kraken announced its Kaspa listing, which led Kaspa to pump severely. I think it was around 15% in a matter of minutes, but the next day it also dropped down. So that has led many people to start to wonder, what will a Kraken listing or a tier 1 exchange listing mean for Kaspa? A tier 1 exchange listing will affect Kaspa in many aspects. So I will divide up this video by first explaining the short-term effects the Kraken listing may have on Kaspa, and also later on in the video talk about the long-term effects and what it will mean for Kaspa. When buying cryptocurrencies, there is one tactic, that is to buy the cryptocurrency once it is on shady exchanges, or you mine it from the beginning to later sell it when it gets listed on larger exchanges like a tier 1 exchange listing like Kraken. So buy the shady exchange and sell into the tier 1 exchange. And there's also the strategy to buy the rumor and sell the news. So that could be a possibility of what we could be seeing the day Kaspa gets listed, a short-term dump, in other words. And I think that that is the most likely scenario, that we will see Kaspa depreciate the first day or the following days that it gets listed. But I mean, who knows? There might be some people that haven't bought Kaspa because it's just too much of a hassle and it's only on shady exchanges. So there might be some people on Kraken that are eager to buy Kaspa and that will buy it directly as it gets listed. But I think it's more likely to see a short-term dump. But what do I mean with short term? Let's jump into what a tier 1 exchange listing means for Kaspa in the future or in the long run. But before I start talking about that, there's something really important that you must always keep in mind when buying and storing cryptocurrencies. Now, when buying cryptocurrencies, it's very important to remember that exchanges can fail and go bankrupt. And if that were to happen, and if you were to store your cryptocurrencies on an exchange, your cryptocurrency would also go inside that bankruptcy and you would lose all of your cryptocurrency, most likely. So that's why you should always have a separate wallet, preferably a cold hardware wallet, where you send your cryptocurrencies to from the exchange. So if anything were to happen with the exchange, you would still have your cryptocurrencies. Personally, I'm using the Tangem hardware wallet, which in my opinion is a very good hardware wallet. So if you want to store your cryptocurrencies safely, purchase a Tangem hardware wallet using the code Tashi to also save 10% on your purchase. Now keep in mind that the Tangem wallets usually sell out once in a while, so if you really want a hardware wallet, make sure to get yours before they're sold out once again. So what does a tier 1 exchange have? First off, they have a very large user base, very greater than MEXC or Gate.io or Uphold or any of the other exchanges currently offering Kaspa. Hence, more people will be able to see Kaspa, recognize Kaspa, perhaps also research Kaspa and get into Kaspa. So a tier 1 exchange will bring much more exposure to Kaspa for retail investors, but also institutional investors. And that's where the real big money is at. Because once the institutional investors see that Kaspa is getting listed on tier 1 exchanges, then it becomes much more attractive for them to also get into it. And with a large user base and potential institutional investors comes a large amount of liquidity. And that is much needed for Kaspa, because currently it's being traded on these other exchanges that don't have as much liquidity, but they are currently leading in the volume traded every day, which means that the shady exchanges are able to manipulate the price of Kaspa if they want to. And it's not as common to see tier 1 exchanges manipulating price like the shady ones do. So that means that if Kraken were to climb to the top of volume traded with Kaspa, then it will be harder to manipulate the price for the smaller exchanges. So the Kraken tier 1 exchange listing will bring more users, more eyes, and more potential capital to Kaspa, which inevitably, in my opinion, will drive the price of Kaspa up, very much up in the future to come. And especially now that we have an up and coming bull run, or we're actually in the middle of it, it depends on who you ask, then there will be the liquidity to also send Kaspa to greater levels. Now, you don't really need to be a doctor or a scientist or a technical analysis guy to figure this out. More eyes, more people, more wallets to convert their fiat currencies or other cryptocurrencies into Kaspa. But I also believe it's important to discuss other aspects of Kaspa when it comes to the price, because as you all probably know, the supply is rapidly decreasing. or not actually the actual supply, or the actual supply is not decreasing, but the amount of Kaspa given to the miners to mine a Kaspa block is rapidly decreasing. I remember when I started buying Kaspa, I believe it was around 154 or 160 Kaspa per block the miners got, but now it's down to 70 and it's rapidly decreasing. So it wouldn't be unreasonable to see a supply crunch or a supply squeeze of Kaspa as we saw with Bitcoin back at 40k, where the ETF approval was a sell the news event, but it very quickly recovered that zone and now it's trading at $90,000, which is just insane. Personally, I'm waiting for a Kaspa ETP to get released. Now, for those of you that don't know, an ETP is an exchange traded product, which is basically the European version of a spot ETF. Europe has a lot of ETPs. I believe that every top 10 cryptocurrency has an ETP, and that just makes it much more easier for me to buy the cryptocurrencies and also pay very low taxes. Because at least here in Sweden, when you're buying cryptocurrencies on spot and keep the actual cryptocurrencies, you are taxed much higher, and that's why I'm mostly invested in ETPs when it comes to Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, and those tokens. And Kaspa is actually the only cryptocurrency that I'm buying on spot. And with an ETP or a spot ETF, that would also bring so much institutional volume to Kaspa. And now that there is already a Bitcoin spot ETF and also Ethereum spot ETF, I don't think it's unlikely to see a Kaspa spot ETF and ETP in the upcoming future, because that will also allow much more institutional investors to buy Kaspa, or at least expose themselves to the price action of Kaspa. And I also want to show you this picture. It's a picture that is representing where the money is at, like all the money in the world. All in all, it's $900 trillion, and you can see Bitcoin, it's only a small fraction of that, it's roughly $1 trillion. And if we were to put Kaspa at that chart at roughly 26 billion market cap, I think it's at, then you even wouldn't be able to see it on the picture. So Kaspa just has so much more potential to grow. Now, I'm not going to say that Kaspa will reach $1 trillion in market cap, at least not in the upcoming year or 2 or 3, but who knows, in 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, depending on how the economy develops, how Kaspa develops and is perceived by the overall crypto market, now that it is going to be listed on tier 1 exchanges, who knows, it might be getting a spot there. And also one thing to keep in mind is that now that Kaspa is listed on one tier 1 exchange, the other tier 1 exchanges will also probably follow, like Binance, Coinbase, Crypto.com, and those kinds of exchanges. And then we will see so much volume, and yeah, it will most likely be good overall for the Kaspa price action. So yeah, the Kraken listing might lead to a short-term dip, but when the sequential pumps eventually hit, the FOMO will be greater than ever, and so will also the price action of Kaspa to the upside. That's at least what I'm believing, because there's more eyes to see Kaspa when it's rising like 30%, and many of them will FOMO in to buy, and more eyes means more wallets, means more fiat or other cryptocurrencies converted into Kaspa. Now, if you like trading Kaspa with futures or Bitcoin or Ethereum or really what else with futures, you can sign up on BTCC using my link down below. In my opinion, it's the best exchange to use if you're gonna trade with futures, because first of all, you don't need to do any KYC, and it's also allowed in the US, the UK, and a bunch of other countries. Before ending, I really want to hear your thoughts. What do you think a Kaspa tier 1 exchange listing will mean for the long term or the short term? Or if you have any other thoughts that you just want to express about Kaspa, please drop them down below. I love reading your comments, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.